how would you define a contagious community?
Well, I think it's a community people want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And they want to bring other people into.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. Where, like, I want to bring other people that I like into this community.
Hello, and welcome to the Self-Funded with Spencer podcast, a show that cares about healthcare. Each week, we sit down with some of the top industry minds to discuss how this healthcare system works, what solutions actually deliver results for employers, and how do everyday Americans get access to better and cheaper care. So whether this is your first day on the job, or you're a grizzled industry veteran, or if you even randomly stumbled upon this podcast, I promise you that this show is full of information to help you understand this crazy world we call U.S. healthcare. So thanks for tuning in to the Self-Funded with Spencer podcast. Let's go make healthcare better together.
All right, so you want to kick us off?
Yeah, we can, but we kind of said we're going to start this podcast with nothing really from an agenda perspective, right? Or I think we have one topic we want to cover, but we didn't know how we want to start it. Ooh, you have a secret topic.
I have a secret topic. I actually don't. I just want people to listen. So
I have a secret topic, and you have to wait 30 minutes to hear that secret topic. So listen to the whole episode. But Scott, I guess we'll say real quick, we're here at your boathouse, right? Or what are we? The boathouse? Does it have a name?
No, there's not a name. People name boats. I don't think people name boathouses. One could name a boathouse. You
could call it the boathouse.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
Is that not very?
That's a little arrogant
original?
to say it's the boathouse.
Well, kind of like the Ohio State. Isn't that a little arrogant?
They're arrogant. Yeah,
I know. Okay.
I'm sorry to all of my Buckeye fans.
I'd say it is a boathouse, but it happens to be your boathouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, we just had a big wind gust.
Yeah.
So
I got a little chill.
That might be picking up on the audio. It's part of the aura of this podcast. We're in nature.
We are in nature. Brett, are we good? Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
By the way, Is
that enough of a layer for you? I'm worried it might be cold.
You can't tell probably. I have my hands, I have pockets.
Yeah.
Val, my wife, also affectionately known as Miss Hot Dog, hates when she thinks I look like a teenager when I wear like hoodies with hands, and I love it more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, this is my uniform.
I have my hands in pockets right now, but you just skipped over the fact that you call her Miss Hot Dog?
Yes, she is it's a hot dog, but that's somehow grown into Miss Hot Dog because, like, the kids in our lives now call her Miss Hot Dog, like it's a real name. Like my nephew, when we first made the introduction years ago, and called her Hot Dog, and my nephew Griffin said, "Miss Hot Dog, is your real name Hot Dog?" She's like, "No."
How old was he when he asked that?
He was probably 6 or 7 when he asked that. No, there's this. I'll tell the story because I don't think I've told the story. So, Val Strimster Smith. Mm-hmm. So, my wife, we've been married about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. Okay. Known her for 15 years, but she owned Intrepid of Colorado. So she was a benefit agency owner. Just retired this summer after 25 years of owning the business. So when we first started dating, you have to go way back to when you were dating, but. You know how when you're texting people, you're kind of cutesy sometimes?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, she would use a lion emoji for me because of the red beard.
Okay.
Right? And she was like, "What's your emoji for me?" And I was like, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. So within a 24-hour period, we were going to Home Depot in Denver, and which is where she was living at the time. And she said, "Oh, I hope they have their hot dog cart here at Home Depot." And I just looked at her because she eats so healthy. She would not, at that time, it was like sticks and berries would fall out of her fridge.
Okay.
She was eating clean, no sugar, nothing. And I was like, "You would eat a Home Depot hot dog?" She's like, "I love them. They're delicious." And I was like, "Well, that is interesting." And so then the next day, that morning, we woke up. And when you wake up with someone, there's no makeup, they're kind of fresh-faced. And Val has, at that time, had this very sort of power woman, suits every day, full makeup, type A personality, business owner, kind of a kick-ass woman. Mm-hmm. And that was her persona. But at home in the morning, there was this fresh, cute face. And I was like, "Oh, look at your little cute face." And so I was like, you have like two personalities, hot dog and cute face.
Okay.
And so I started sending her a hot dog emoji and a baby emoji as like hot dog cute face.
Yeah.
And somehow the hot dog stuck.
The cute face didn't.
I still call her that. But you know how nicknames go?
Yeah.
I would just find myself saying, "Hey, hot dog," and she wouldn't like it. So of course you do it more.
Of course. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
And I mean, yada, yada, yada. Long story short, but
How did she get the Miss? Was it like that's Miss Hot Dog to you? Is that
yeah, it's like the kids, like my niece and nephew and everything. They just started organically, instead of saying like Miss Val, or Mr. Scott or Mr. Spencer. That's what kids do in the South. They started calling her Miss Hot Dog. And so now she's just affectionately known throughout
Miss
the land.
Hot Dog's kind of a cool name because, like, if you're a hot dog, right? I remember as a kid, like, oh, he's a hot dog. Meaning he thinks so highly of himself, or he's hot stuff, right? So you're a hot dog. So, like, Miss Hot Dog's kind of feels like a badass nickname.
She would disagree totally.
She disagrees completely.
Yeah, but she's grown to love it now.
Okay.
I mean, it is very endearing. Like, she really disliked it for the first year, probably. And after
you
that,
just wore it down.
It just completely wore her down. Like, she actually sent me like a Christmas list, and one of the things that she put on there, she wanted was a little hot dog necklace.
Oh,
like a Kate Spade hot
I thought
dog.
it was a Christmas list of also stop calling me hot dog.
No, now she loves it. It's so much.
Did you ask her though what was it about a Home Depot hot dog that at the time she was willing to compromise her strict diet?
She says they're the best hot dogs.
But what is it? Because it comes in the cart?
I guess.
Is it because it's adjacent to like the home goods that you can DIY? Or
I don't think it's Home Depot related. I think it's like a ballpark hot dog. Like some people crave the ballpark hot dog.
My mom was the same way. Like if we every once in a while go to a Ranger game growing up, like she wanted to have a Texas or the ballpark in Arlington hot dog.
I've told this story, and other people have said, "Oh yeah, Home Depot hot dogs are the best." And I'm like, I didn't even know it was a thing.
I wonder if they have like a single supplier that like they've sourced all the different hot dogs in the country, and like this is the single best tasting hot dog.
I refuse to believe that.
Okay.
I think it's just a warm, in the aluminum foil hot doggy kind of. Actually, I don't even know if that's how it comes because I've never had one.
You didn't try it. You didn't feel compelled.
I've
to
never
try
even
one?
seen. I don't even know if I don't have great attention to detail, surprisingly enough, except when it comes to things I'm passionate about. So there could be a hot dog cart outside Home Depot every day, but I physically don't think I've ever seen a hot dog cart at Home Depot. And it's supposedly a thing.
I agree with you.
Britt, have you seen a hot dog cart at Home Depot? Okay, Britt says it's a thing. Well, obviously a thing. Val's not going to lie about it. And she loves them.
Well, I mean, whatever. The people have their things. You know what I mean? Like, for a while there, I was telling you, a Celsius phase.
Yes.
And you know me. Like, I like to eat like a certain way most of the time, a fitness-oriented guy. Whatever reason, taste of a Celsius, I liked them.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing in the morning, I wanted, and it was like, at some point I go, what are you doing? Like, these things are not making you feel good.
Yeah.
You know they're terrible for you. And you can rationalize the caffeine addiction all you want, but you're much better served having a cup of coffee than a Celsius. I just get hooked on random things for phases. Like, I think I went through Frank's Red Hot Sauce phase for like 6 months.
I can see that.
I cooked everything with it. And then at some point I go, ugh.
Yeah.
And I moved on.
I'm a big Louisiana hot sauce fan.
Are you?
You know why?
Why?
Sugar. It has sugar in it.
It has sugar in
It's
it?
kind of sweet and spicy.
Okay.
Like me.
Well, we didn't know how we were going to start the episode. I think we just crushed the start of the episode.
We crushed it. By the way, producer, creative director extraordinary, Britt is over here and Nathaniel is over there.
Yeah, hey, Nathaniel.
And every time I said something cute and funny, when I'm looking up, I'm
Are
looking
you
at
trying
Britt.
to seek validation?
Yeah,
from
I think
Britt?
so.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was
that
funny.
funny, right? Yeah.
Yeah, cute and sweet.
Nathaniel, I can't see you, so I have no idea what your opinion of the podcast is. No, it's all right. Well, so do you really have like a secret thing you wanted to talk about, or was that? Oh man, I was actually kind of excited about that. Well, should we?
I'll make up one. Well, first of all, let me clarify.
Yeah.
We're building a new house. but we had the boathouse was complete last year because we wanted to get this done to enjoy last summer. So we've been love this. Lake Guntersville is where we are. Lake Guntersville, Alabama. For those people who don't know. And yeah, it's still today is November 20th.
Yep.
So this is the first day that it's been kind of cool. When I say cool, it's 60 degrees.
Died down a little bit. I feel like
It did.
the temperature's nice and mild. Like it's not bad.
No, it's wonderful.
But it's fall, and it's my favorite time of
we
year,
have 4 seasons in northern Alabama. But I was just letting I know you've been on my.
I've been here twice. So we shot one in the top of the restaurant where it overlooked the lake. That first
at
one
City Harbor.
And Britt went way over the top with the production value on that.
Yes.
Like I had to give him a shout out for that. And then we did your Super Tuesday.
Super Trooper.
Super Trooper. Why do I keep calling it Super Tuesday?
We have another brand called Tuesday.
That's right. Okay, so Super Trooper. We did that in your office.
Yes.
And then you were down in Texas for one of my episodes as well.
Right.
So this is our 4th time, actually.
Wow.
You're actually competing with Chris Hamilton for, even though one was
I'm
your
not.
episode. Yeah,
I'm not going to, you know what? We're both bald.
I think you told me before we did this, you had a vendetta against Chris Hamilton in his podcast appearances. So you told me that. I know I'm outing.
He's making that up, Hamilton.
Yeah.
He's younger, a little more fit, is a little smarter around healthcare. I'm not sure he's smarter altogether.
I don't know if he knows anything else.
But he's pretty smart on the healthcare stuff.
He's really smart on that.
You know what a superpower? You know, we had this in common. Our superpower are our wives.
Okay.
Because Val, smarter than me, more organized than me, detailed, really makes everything in my life better. Natalie, all those things for Chris. Probably the best consultant, like sort of managing accounts, running a block of business. You know, way up. You know, when we say Chris is a 1%er, it's because part of that's because of Natalie.
Is it? Yeah.
And she's so good. I mean, so good and so smart. So yeah, that's what bald, relatively intelligent. I mean, I was smiling when I say that. And we made
It's always funny when you even give yourself the credit of like, I'm relatively intelligent, which is obviously true, but it still is weird when you say that about yourself.
It sounds ridiculous.
Like I actually was explaining to this to my kids. So I've got 7 and 4-year-old kids. And my son has started to say his own name and do stuff. So Sebastian wants to do this. Like I think he's just learned third person, but he doesn't quite understand what third person is. So I was explaining to my kids what you would say, Brooklyn is hungry. And I think it was sort of like connecting, but I think she was also like, why would you ever say your own name you're instead of just saying I am hungry?
Right.
It's like, oh no, there's these weird people that are so like egotistical that they will say their own name in a conversation in third person.
Can he say Sebastian or how does he say
it? He said it's kind of like Bastion.
I love it.
He's Sebastian. I mean, we call him Bash. I think I've told you that. So like he's on his soccer jersey. It says Bash and all that good stuff.
I don't know. Whether he likes it or not, another Bash.
I don't either. Which is like, and everybody that hears it, he actually had another Sebastian on his team, but his dad, that Sebastian's dad was Venezuelan, and so he would go by Sebas.
Oh.
So Sebastian or Sebas. Yep. So then you had Sebas and Bash, which are both technically Sebastian, but like he's the only Bash. I mean,
it's a good thing you did that.
He's gonna have. He's going to love that at some point in the future.
Yep.
Like we gave him that nickname.
You also may be setting him up to be a really rambunctious kid.
Well, my wife called me about 2 hours ago and said the school called. And they go, don't worry, he's okay. Managed to fall out of his chair. And as he fell out and kind of bumped his head, he bit his own lip. And so his lip was bleeding. And so he does things like that on an almost daily basis.
That's something a Bash would do.
I know. So do you think there's something in like a nickname? Do you think there's something in you almost inherit the characteristics
There's something
of it?
about a name, which I think you could go to the nickname part. But I have to be careful because I'm going to say something off the top of my head and it'll be somebody I know and it'll offend them.
Yeah.
But like if your name is Wildflower, I'm just like, you're probably going to have some hippie-ish tendencies.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just probably because your parents named you Wildflower because they had something
in
them.
Genetics. Yeah.
But it's almost like you set.
But see, I am not a rambunctious guy. I was not a rambunctious kid. I can't tell you how my wife was as a kid. But we're both kind of driven type A people, but neither one of us are like hyper aggressive or risk takers. So Bash, in terms of a genetic disposition, likely isn't becoming a Bash because of us.
Yeah, that would.
But maybe he is. Maybe he's just a 4-year-old boy too, which is like.
I think this is when it would start happening because he starts to identify as Bash. Bash, dash.
And we used to say bash smash a lot.
Yeah,
like
see?
Bash smash.
Those are all aggressive things. You're not saying bash cuddle.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we'll see if he turns into like this handful.
Well, he's the same, but he's the polar opposite because like the other day we were playing soccer in the street, he falls, twists his knee, scrapes his knee, he's got a bruise on his knee. And at night when my wife's putting him down to bed, if we take turns, he's cuddling. He's like, "Mommy, I love you. You're so beautiful." He picks her a flower almost every single day too.
Is this sincere or manipulative?
No, it's sincere.
Okay,
like
because Hip's going to be manipulative. I'm like, this is a cool ass kid.
Yeah,
already.
He's pretty cool. Yeah, no, I think it's actually sincere because he's done it like basically ever since he could talk. He's very
Bash.
sweet. Yeah. So I'm just bracing myself for when like he gets much bigger and gets himself in trouble.
He's probably he will.
But it'll be charming too.
It will,
and get out of trouble. Probably
it'll be like picking a flower. Mom,
I'm so sorry I wrecked your car.
I got arrested. I'm sorry.
Chronic health issues, surprise out-of-network medical bills, inflated medical and prescription drug prices. These issues cost self-insured employers hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Add to this the rising cost of care and potential for waste across the life of a claim, and it's clear that self-insured employers need innovative solutions that lower their health plan spend. At Valence, we've done just that, developed innovation that shifts the current paradigm. A complete and integrated ecosystem solution driven by data, one that manages and simplifies the complexity of medical claim costs. It is through analyzing millions of data points that we enable employers to realize and fuel cost-saving solutions. Valence experts come prepared from day one, targeting the fraction of claims that will drive the majority of health plan costs. That is how our team lives the Valence promise, engaging early and often for smarter, better, faster healthcare.
Well, so what you want to talk about this idea? I think the big idea we had for the episode, and see where it goes from here.
Yeah.
Or how do you want to introduce the concept then?
Well, I'll give a backstory around. So we're talking around all things True Network, Pareto, training. You and I are both heavily invested in just us being better.
Yeah.
And just growth, right? And also achieving our goal in our jobs, right? So mine is all the agencies that are within True. We help them grow, develop, and prosper. And the people, we want them to grow, develop, and prosper. And in your role at Pareto with training and education. So that's what we're doing here. That's the reason you're in Guntersville, Alabama. But we also both have podcasts and shoot stuff. So we're like, we should do something.
Yeah. Well, it's like one of those, like we're here.
We're here.
You got Nathaniel here. You got Britt here. It's like it would almost be sacrilegious to not shoot a podcast episode.
Although they're both basically just sitting around looking at their phones right now.
I'm not sure exactly what they actually
They're
do.
literally both looking at their phones right now. They're like, we set you up. You're good. You guys are good.
Yeah.
So we were talking about what should we shoot a Super Trooper episode? Should we shoot a Self-Funded with Spencer episode? And you basically said, what are you interested in right now?
Yeah.
I said, well, really, I've become obsessed with this term that I call contagious community. So I gave a keynote presentation in January of last year to our network, the owners. So we have an owners meeting of True Network agency owners at the end of every January. And I did my first ever keynote that was non-industry specific. So I've talked about captives and healthcare and benefit communication and all kind of things within our industry. But I had never done like a keynote, sort of an in general about something else.
Yeah.
And so I did one. It was loosely entitled, what did I entitle that one? It was really the sort of the top 10 things that I had learned the last 8 years since I started True. And I got done, and it was the only crowd in America that would have given me a standing ovation after that speech. Literally, there's a singular crowd.
Yeah.
It's the network of True. But they know me. They knew sort of the sincerity in the way I put that together. But I got done, and my friend Pete Scruggs from Golson Scruggs out of Battleground, Washington, sent me a message after the event and said, Scott, I really would like you to do a presentation on how to build a contagious community because that's what True is, and I think that's your superpower.
Well, all right. So I got a couple questions.
Yeah.
One, going back a step, as somebody that regularly speaks on a certain subset of topics, I'm kind of similar. Like it's self-funding, it's stop loss, it's captives, it's something of that nature. Did you feel uncomfortable having to create a new hour keynote around a subject that wasn't necessarily easily something that you could talk about for that hour? You had to build it. Like, how did you feel about doing that?
Not uncomfortable. It was really, I wanted to.
Was it exciting kind of?
Yeah, it was exciting.
Yeah.
I wanted to. I had been thinking about this as I'm getting to a point in my career where I'm attracted to new, and I started True 9 years ago. So November 1st was technically the 9-year anniversary. And I have to fight boredom. Now, there's a lot within True that you never get bored. But you do start to have some of the sort of Groundhog Day feelings of, okay, we're having another owners meeting. How do we make that exciting? We're having another learning academy. What's the theme for that? Our partnerships, are they stale? I'm obsessed with this providing value to our members. But within that, I tend to get bored easily. And I love being on stage. I just love it. I love speaking. I love the improvisation that comes with not knowing what's next and being able to almost pivot and make fun jokes in the moment. Like at our events, at True events, when I'm hosting and moderating, it is my happy place. And I had been watching all these other, we hire 12, 15 speakers a year or so. And cool people, Jesse Itzler, Jesse Cole, Savannah Bananas, we'd had Archie Manning.
Mm-hmm. Saw that.
We had this past year, who did we just have? Lance Armstrong.
Heard of him.
Yeah. I mean, James Clear, Atomic Habits. So we've had some A-listers, and then we have a lot of people who are just interesting speakers, up-and-comers. And some of them are better than others, let me just say.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
I know what we're paying them because we write the checks. So I was like, that's interesting. Like, that wasn't that great. I really think that maybe I could do that. But I struggled a little bit on the topic, what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. How did you arrive at the 10 things you learned over?
It was the easiest thing, right? So it was like, you know what, I think my audience would like to hear a little bit of my background.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, those are boathouse doors. I don't know if anybody can hear the wind in here. It's really windy.
I don't either, but they're really loud for us. Yeah.
So I knew that our audience, the true audience, would be slightly interested in a background story and what got me here.
Yep.
And by the way, I also have a DJ with me at these presentations.
Oh,
so
yeah.
DJ Jason Eskridge
Yeah,
out
he's
of
awesome.
Nashville.
Yeah.
We actually build in music within the keynote presentation. So about half of it's rehearsed and about half of it I let him improv.
Yeah.
Because he'll play a song that I don't know what's coming, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So for example, the funniest moment in this keynote last year was I was talking about self-awareness. And I said, really we talk about self-awareness, but we never talk about how do you become self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about self-exploration. And when I said self-exploration, he played the song I Touch Myself by the DeViles.
You had no idea.
So that was like, oh man, you got me. I have a recovery time on this one.
Yeah.
Some of it's scripted because I'll be writing and this song would be great there.
Yep.
But that.
Yeah, the multimedia component of that, I got to witness that at Healthcare in Harmony last year.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. You actually, I don't know if I told you, kind of fulfilled a lifelong dream of mine.
But your walk-up song?
Yeah, with my walk-up song. Because I was like, Tool, is my favorite band. You obviously knew that. You shared it. DJ, you said Jason?
Jason, yeah.
And it was like, I got to walk up on stage, which I love to speak as well, and I got to be brought up by a Tool song.
Yeah.
I mean, like literally bucket list kind of moment. So thank you for that.
Oh, of course, man. And that Healthcare in Harmony, that's another event of ours. So
you felt comfortable. How long did it take you to build it? I mean, it was just kind of telling your story, right? But like, how long did it take you to get comfortable? And if I could ask, do you have a rehearsal process?
Well, that's evolving.
Okay.
So this one, I take notes in draft emails on my phone. So
Me too. Yeah.
So I probably literally have 400 or 500 there, and I'll go back periodically and clean them up, and I'll consolidate them. I just consolidated. I put speaking notes as a subject matter, and then occasionally I'll go in and copy and paste that all into one email it to myself, to my personal email too, so I don't lose it.
That's smart.
So, well, it's as smart as for an unorganized person. It works for me. And so I had gobs of notes on this subject. So it was probably a 90-day process of really sitting down and between real work and putting together the shell of the presentation, and then rehearsing it. It came together pretty quickly because I did not. We really didn't agree to put it on the agenda until probably 90 days out.
Okay.
And I have to be careful that I don't overexpose myself to our network because I am talking to them all the time. We have a weekly show called Tuesday that's every Tuesday. We have a 30-minute live stream. We're doing live, videos to them. I'm at every event. I'm on stage. So
they're like, we get it, Scott.
we get
You're
it.
Awesome.
You're cute and interesting.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
That's an inside joke. But I really, Britt can attest to this because I'm giving another keynote in January, different topic at this owners meeting. But I went to the True team. I said, hey, listen, I need you guys to tell me if you think this is me, into myself too much. Mm-hmm. If it's not valuable, we don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Now, number one, it's budget friendly, right? Because we're not paying for a keynote speaker.
We don't take out of one pocket and put it in your left pocket.
I don't get anything for that.
Okay.
But if it's not valuable, then we don't need to do it.
Yeah.
And the True team is pretty good about keeping me in check.
That's good.
I really feel that they would tell me, well, first of all, Joel Tillerson, much love to you. 100% Joel would tell me.
Yes, he
Our
would.
events director.
Yeah, he would.
He'd be like, I don't know. You're overexposed. But I'm doing another. So I'm actually doing the presentation on how to build a contagious community in January.
Well, that was going to be my second question. So I asked you the question about building it out.
Yeah.
The second question is that a term? Like you told it to me yesterday is the first time I've actually heard that term.
Yeah.
But is there a concept of a contagious community that's like known out there or is used in vernacular or?
So this has been filed for trademark by me.
By you, okay.
I filed it. It's not marked right now. The only thing I can find is like.
How long do I need to wait to release this podcast so you get a trademark?
I saw. I'm not even gonna say what I saw because that might be like used against me. It's not trademarked.
Okay.
Now whether I get pushback from it, I don't know. But yeah, and shout out Pete Scruggs again is the one that gave me the idea and the term, and it immediately hit me. It's like whoa.
What's a great sort of premise?
Yeah.
How to build it. And I think he gave it to you, right? Because he's seen what you've accomplished with True.
Yeah.
Which now that I understand that terminology, I would definitely say you have a contagious community. So then how do you have the, I don't know, comfort level, the ability to say, this is how we did it? Like, do you feel, or did it just happen? Or is it a combination?
I'm in the process, man.
Okay.
So I'm starting to interview people with a different kind of question. And I'm actually going to get the True team to do some of the interviewing too, so it's not me, because I think that might elicit a more honest response. Because I know the things that I know, and I assume some things around what has gone on to build it. But as I've started to interview people, I've been surprised sometimes at some of the answers. So I think the challenge is, and this is why, I've got the shell of a book that will go along with the presentation. It'll take me a year to write it probably, but the challenge was, could you teach somebody? So when I started thinking, could I speak on it? That's the question. I said, well, could you teach this? And at that moment, the answer was no, I couldn't, because I'm in it. Like I'm working on it. I'm still working on it. It's not complete. But the result is, like today, we have 92-ish of these employee benefit agencies that are members of True. But there's never been a sales team or a sales person or a sales department. All the work is done via referrals. We've only lost 2 agencies over the 9 years that left True that weren't acquired by someone else.
Okay.
One was one of the very first agencies who was kind of a friend of mine, and he kind of joined because I really needed him to in Birmingham.
Yeah.
He had a life insurance agency that did some benefits, and he joined. Like 2 years later, he was like, I'm not getting anything out of this. I know.
Yeah.
And then we had an agency out of Charleston that was just going through some ownership changes. And they were like, we're not going to be able to go to the meetings and stuff. So
that's a really high retention rate.
Yeah. So something, and it's not going to stay forever. As we grow, we're going to have some misses, but we're doing something that resonates, and people love it. When I say people love our culture, they're part of it. They help build it. They've helped create it. The True team has helped create it. There's this real affinity, and it sounds cheesy, but there's this love of the network. Not everybody, because some people choose not to be as engaged, but those people that are engaged in the network, and I can go on and on. I could talk about the Jansens and Eric Ross at 212 Benefits. I could talk about newer ones like Logan Monsheen in Fort Lauderdale, or Curtis at Keppel. And these are really new member agencies that they just hit the ground and they understand it. Ryan Davis at a company called Renewal in Chattanooga. Chris Hamilton would be one of those people. These people are developing friendships outside of me, outside of True, where they're going on trips together. And people really want each other to do well. And not just succeed, but just be happy, you know? So there's this community that's developed. And it would be like, if there's some elements of that you can teach, that would just be really cool.
Well, there's a couple things that come to mind. One, it's like you're in it, you're in the thick of it, right? So it's hard to really explain it until you actually do a retrospective. So like the whole idea of you can't only connect the dots in hindsight kind of thing, right? Because when you're in the middle of building it, it's like flying a plane while you're building it. You're just building it, and then you go, oh, that's what we did, or that's why that worked, right? You almost have to do your own sort of debrief, or you're not an exit interview, but you like just your own retrospective analysis of how while you're doing it. You didn't quite know. Some of them was just instinctual, probable decisions you made. Some of them, a little bit of luck, right place, right time, your network supporting you. But I think you putting it together, looking back, is probably going to be really interesting what you uncover.
There's this weird, life is full of paradoxes. One of my notes on my phone is now this paradox list, and I write new ones down about a couple times a month.
What's your latest paradox that you got?
Well, I'm going to try to see if this is one of them.
Okay.
So this is probably not a paradox, but you'll get what I was my line of thinking. So on one hand, there's this, you want to have this humility to be like, well, it's not all about me. And what else has gone into it? Let me talk about the people, like everything, but you kind of want to like not talk about my role in it, because you do want to have humility. On the other hand, you love it when people talk good about you and the things that you did.
Yeah.
That's kind of a paradox.
Oh, no, I'm the same
paradox.
way. If somebody will tell you, oh, like they come and like love your podcast, or I learned stop loss from you, I appreciate that. And it also makes me uncomfortable simultaneously. And I want to change the subject as quickly as possible, because there's something weird about somebody like complimenting you sort of profusely on something. I don't feel quite comfortable with it. If it's just the initial, hey, I love the videos, I'm like, thanks. And if it stops there, but if it keeps going, does it make you a little uncomfortable to have somebody praise you like to your face?
This is interesting.
Because it does me.
I think it's different. I think being honest is hard. Being honest with yourself. I think it's just a weird, it goes back to self-awareness a little bit. Most of us secretly love praise.
Of course. Human beings, of course.
Love it. And
like Nathaniel, you're amazing.
Yeah. They dog.
Brent, you're pretty good too.
I mean, love it and crave it and need it. Most of us.
Yeah.
And so in some ways you have to learn to fully accept it, because it's almost like you're devaluing the person that's giving it to you if you don't.
That's fair.
You know, it's like, if you like are constantly deflecting, it's really not fair to that person that's saying, you're doing some amazing stuff. I love what you've done for me and my family. It wouldn't be where I am without you. At some point you have to be like, strip all the stuff away and go, I'm really thankful that I could have that impact.
Well, and I want to at least like clear up, I don't feel a lack of appreciation. If anything, it's one of the main things that I find joy in. If like that content helps somebody get a job or grow in their career, I derive great pleasure from knowing that. Actually, more so sometimes than even the financial component to this. And I mean that sincerely. Yeah. But there is a point where it's like, I want to move on from the subject.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think with that point where we're uncomfortable, we have to embrace it just a little bit longer.
Yeah, fair enough.
To honor the person that's given it to you.
I agree with you completely.
It's uncomfortable a little bit, but this comes with maturity too. But it really is that paradox where, okay, I'm speaking specifically about how do you build a contagious community. Like, it's hard to be like step back and go, okay, this was my input. This is what I did, Scott Smith, to help create the contagious community. Like, you have to kind of strip some of all that away and just, okay, what was it? If I'm going to teach it, I've got to be honest. And okay, we did that.
Yeah.
And if that's something that is really unique to my personality or skill set, then you've got to find a way to communicate it without it sounding braggy.
Yeah.
You know?
ClaimDoc is a medical claim auditing and member advocacy company. We provide fiduciary services to employer-sponsored benefit plans, and allowing them to create an environment where we ensure that the benefit plans are being charged in a fair and reasonable basis.
My business is basically people, and it become a real simple transition. We thought it was going to be far more complex. I've saved, we'll say, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I could not say enough about ClaimDoc.
Well, and people would want to know it, right? I think you and I were having a phone conversation last week, kind of in preparation, what we're going to do while we're here. And I think one of the things you told me about, I think it's Steve Noodleberg was his name.
Yeah.
It's like, if I were to have somebody ask me, well, how did you create this podcast and make it successful? Like, I can sort of teach you how it happened. I don't necessarily know if I could teach you how you would do it.
Yeah.
But I think your point back to me was like, you may think that there's not value in showing exactly how you did it, but the point is that it's created a certain level of success. So clearly it worked. So why wouldn't it be able to be conveyed to
Yeah.
another person? And they apply some of those same principles to
Yeah.
replicate it and do the same.
To give Noodleberg the full credit for this, because this was we had an event at Barnsley Resort in Adairville, Georgia during COVID. So this was April of 2020. Who knows what the timeline was, but somehow or maybe it was 2021. It was 21. There was these peaks and valleys of COVID. We snuck in an event, a live event, in April of 21, and he was speaking. And Steve's a very direct, sometimes a little bit brash, around marketing and media, and they've done a wonderful job of building a company called On the Ball around a lot of work with LinkedIn and how to use LinkedIn. But so he was telling how to do it, and he was getting one person in the crowd that was kind of pushing back a little bit.
Okay.
And he basically said, "Look, if something else works for you, go do it. I'm telling you, this works for me, and I've coached people who this works for them, so I know this works. But if you've got another way to do it, I mean, go do it." And that's so simplistic that it's like,
But it does work for some people. It may not work for
That's exactly
everybody, right? I mean, that's also, but just because it didn't work for one single individual doesn't discount the ability for it to work for a bunch of other people
That's
as
right.
well. And I think I think his whole point was he's the living proof that it worked
right.
for him.
That's right.
So you can't really deny that, right?
Right.
Because he's the one on stage teaching the stuff. And I feel that too. And so then when you think about like how to communicate that or convey that, I mean, what do you even think, if you were to define what a contagious community actually is? I think I have some sentiment about what I believe that to be, but how would you define a contagious community?
and maybe a missing part of my ingredient here, because I should be able to spit that out, I think. That's a homework for me. Well, I think it's a community people want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And they want to bring other people into.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. Where, like, I want to bring other people that I like into this community.
Well, an infection or contagion has like a negative connotation, but the idea is that it sort of naturally has the ability to spread. And I think if you were building a contagious community, it would organically spread to more people without a super amount of intentional effort to disseminate it, right? So like True sort of seems to just organically grow by a certain pace every year by the fact that you do really cool events and have obviously, material evidence of it in video to show like how fun and exciting it was. But then you have people also talking about it and sharing, oh, you guys should look at True. It's great.
Yeah.
They're like living out their enjoyment of it and they want to spread it to other people. So that to me, that's the contagiousness component of it.
Yeah. We've had people say, it's the best business decision I've ever made.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. More than one person has said that. And that goes beyond our events. Like, one of the things we often get dinged around at True is like, you just guys have fun, you throw parties and have fun. And I want to be a part of that. That is a big part of it, that we don't take life too seriously and that we want to engage folks with fun and inspiration and motivation and laughter and dancing and silliness. That's all part of the True culture. But that is not the most important part. The most important part is that we're becoming better humans. And that's been a change. That started in 2020 during COVID, where we started leaning into personal development. So we're probably, it's probably 50-50 really, where 50% of what we do is employee benefit insurance work. We're talking about Employee Navigator and Pareto and captives and Banacon as a consortium and pharmacy, but we're also talking about how to scale your office. How do you train your salespeople? How do you train your account managers and AEs? How are you servicing these crazy self-insured clients that you're doing? What do your job descriptions look like? What are your compliance processes? Are you doing small group or large group? If we've got some agencies doing 300, 400, 500 groups over a 60-day period that they're renewing. And that takes heavy expertise in small group processes. So number one, I think the contagion started, like, I almost talk about patient zero, like ground zero is we had a bunch of smart agencies that were willing to share their stuff.
Yeah.
And they saw me as an expert. We were talking about this earlier. To attract the people that we've attracted, like Chris Hamilton. My first conversation with Chris Hamilton, we were supposed to talk for 15 minutes and it was like an hour and a half because we went into this wild tangent around pharmacy. And he knew I knew what I was talking about. And I'd also done some things he hasn't done yet. And so they just created this mutual respect.
Yep.
He wasn't going to join over the phone because I had Archie Manning speak at an event. He decided to join because he thought we could help his practice.
Yeah.
So that first part of that Contagious community, I think is, again, this goes back to for what we've done, is you have to have credibility in whatever
Absolutely.
lane you're in.
Yep.
And I would say even more credibility, it's like respect or expertise. Like it helps, I think, if you really, really know what you're talking about.
Well, it helps, right? It's one thing if you were attract people from like social media presence or just a vision, an idea of what it is, but then you had a really high attrition rate because it actually wasn't delivering a value substantively over time. The contagion component, I think, is predicated on it actually working for them as well, and continuing to work 5 or 6 or 7 years in as well. Because at some point, you're probably, and maybe you're like me, you said you get bored from time to time. Once you've sort of developed an understanding about certain things and you've got it operationally running, you kind of want to go, well, what's next? And so how do you continue to spread that contagion, if you will, for somebody that's been with you from the beginning? Like, how do you keep delivering value to somebody that's been doing this, 7 years or 8 years now with you? Do you obsess over that? Do you think a lot of that?
Yeah. I see Brent smiling over there as we talk about it.
Yeah.
My buddy Dan Campbell, who has Campbell Pizza up in New Jersey, you know Dan, he said something about 6 months ago to me, and this is very flattering. He said, Scott, I think we're like immune to how good your stuff is now at True. Like how good our virtual events are, how good the live experiences are. They've experienced it for 9 years now. Those people that have been around for 9 years, 8 years, 7 years, all they know is what we do. Sometimes I want to ship them off to somewhere else and go look at, look at that
Get some
experience.
context. Yeah.
So they that's all that they know, and that in itself is
There's a
challenge
for you.
Once
you establish the bar of excellence and it becomes normal, it's almost like, how do you keep somebody's awareness that they're receiving excellence if it's just the standard that you've set?
Well, you also have 90 organizations, which is a lot of people that, you're talking to producers, consultants, agency owners. They also want different things. So, we've really honed in on, and this is, I think, will be part of it. And again, I don't have this whole presentation built yet.
Yeah, I appreciate you kind of sharing it in its infancy here.
But, we talk about all the time, like, how do we, first, there's all these stakeholders. So you've got the newer agencies who haven't seen anything. So they would love to see the best of the hits. They would like to see all the presentations that everybody else has seen 2 or 3 times already. They need to see those. But yet it's hard for me to put those on at a live event because half the crowd has seen that presentation from Intrepid, Colorado on their compliance processes. They've seen them 3 times. So it is a real challenge to start digging into like newer agencies that have been here for 3 or 4 years, the ones that have been here forever. Agencies who are in a really advanced self-funding versus those who are just dipping their toe in the water. It's a challenge. It's a puzzle. There's no easy answer. I think it's probably one of the reasons we've leaned a little bit into personal development because that hits everybody.
Yep.
So if you were to look at the agenda for this year's owners meeting, we have David Epstein, who has written several books really around human performance. It has nothing to do with insurance, but really has done a deep dive into what makes high achievers. And whether that's the leader themselves at the owners meeting or them actually coaching their newer leaders, it's fascinating stuff. Maura Thomas is speaking really she's an expert on time management, attention management, and how do they scale that in their practice. It doesn't have anything to do with insurance. It's more personal development. I'm doing one on how to build a contagious community. Now, in between that, we'll have best practices from agencies that will be telling what they're doing that's working. But it is it's one of the things we've done really well is to say, what does our audience want? What do they need? And then how do we put some surprises in there? Like, I did not even know I wanted or needed that.
Well, that's you're speaking of the difficulty I feel sometimes, like when I do a lot of public speaking, as you know, for Pareto, and it's like the spectrum of understanding in that room is very vast, right? So you have an employer where this is the first time they're really understanding what this concept of self-funding is, to their consultant that's been doing this for a decade and, can run circles around me in their understanding of it, right? But you have to try to build a track that's applicable to everybody in that room. And you constantly feel like it's this push-pull where you're going to be doing a disservice to somebody in the audience, but you can't tailor it exactly to everybody. So you have to find whatever that happy medium is, that somebody who's really experienced still gets value, but somebody that's complete novice still can follow along at the same time.
Yeah.
I struggle with that all the time, man.
You can't please everybody. So, for example, last year's owners meeting was phenomenal. It was at the PGA facility in PGA National in Florida. This was last year's owners meeting, yeah. And it was great. We had, the speakers, phenomenal. Everything. The actual peer-to-peer sharing, phenomenal. But there was a survey request that said, basically, I didn't fly all the way across the country to not learn about insurance. Like, this agency owner was like, I don't want any of this nonsense. Mm-hmm. I want to learn about employee navigators, buying ease, and I want to go deep into like self-funding, and that's not going to happen at that event, right? So I've got to reach out to that person and say, hey man, now that's more we've got another event for that. This one is about this. It's always going to be about this, because I can't please him. And
right.
But that's a very small minority that didn't enjoy that. So really you start also honing in on who, as I've said before, who's picking up what you're putting down. Like the people that I would say are super fans of True, they know that we care about them. Sometimes I would say me, but I think that's gone beyond me. They know that Britt and Steven and Scotty P and Joel and Chris Talley and Savannah and Valerie. Did I forget anybody in this? I tried to say all the True people that they know we care about them.
Yeah.
So that's another tenet to the Contagious community. People know when you care about them.
Yes.
You can't fake it for very long. You can fake it for a little while, but you can't fake it forever.
Yep.
And it's in the smallest things. It's in the sending a person a text out of the blue when you just haven't seen them for a while.
Yeah.
But a sincere one, not a stock like I'm doing it because I want anything. It's like, I wonder how this person's doing.
Yeah.
Want them to know I'm thinking about them. It's calling them out of the blue.
Yeah.
It's sending them a little note out of the blue. It's taking them aside, and people are often surprised about how much I remember about people. Mm-hmm. Because I pay attention. So a member's name, their kids' names, what their kids are into at the time, what their spouse is up to, or maybe their spouse had a struggle, lost a job. There's just all kind of things that go on in life. And you have to pay attention to remember that thing, that kind of thing. But that's what life is about.
Yeah.
And so when people know you care about them, it opens up a whole level of relationship.
I read this recently as somebody, it was a Twitter thread, and at first it sounds sort of like kind of a weird stance to take, but then he broke it down a little bit further. But his premise was that every great business or every great family structure is kind of like a cult. And a cult has a negative connotation, right? And obviously we cringe at that notion. But he was saying there has to be almost this like Kool-Aid drinking mentality about the business, or your family is sort of run of like, this is how our family is and this is who are we doing. We all buy into the idea. But there's a really fine line between like that contagion of what people loving it, and to where it looks like, from the outside, it looks sort of cult-like, and like,
I've been accused of
those
that
people
before.
brainwashing them into an idea. But I think it has to rise sort of to that level to create that much passion about your business, without obviously the whole like suicide pact and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, two things. Number one, my friend Steve Noodleberg, at that very meeting he came to when I was talking about earlier, when he was leaving, he was like, "This is kind of like a cult, man."
Yeah. Well, I've heard that said about Pareto, and I actually understand it when you go into the energy that comes about it. From an outsider's perspective, it looks like that a little bit, but I think it's rare. You have a similar brand. It's rare that there's such a unique outlier in a space that people gravitate towards so much. And you can't quite put your finger on why. It's sort of the totality of everything around the business. But to people that don't like it, or detractors, or people that are just unaware, it feels a little culty. I could understand that.
Yeah, I think you have to have something to hold on to. So I think with Pareto, the whole healthcare is broken thing is something you can be passionate about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we're going to fix this.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it together, because it's a captive. Like, we're in it together.
Literally. Yeah.
Like, we're literally on this thing together. I think with True, it's been more about the way we treat people. I think if there's a commonality, we have this thing called CACAW, kindness always wins, the hashtag true love. You just put it out there and you try really, really hard to live to that. There's plenty of times when I don't. There's plenty of times where the pressure of me, when we talk about all these things we talked about, all these events, all these partnerships, all these members, all this stuff, we created this whole organization called Patriot, a private equity entity. There's all this stuff going on. And of course there's times where, I'll get snippy with Brett, or human nature stuff. But if you have the right culture, you can also be like, my bad.
Yeah.
Like, that was my bad. Love you, man. So I think when you have that, at the base, everybody knows, hey, we're really doing our best to try to help you grow. And then you have results that you're able to show, no, we're doing it. And then you do it some more, then you help some more people. And then you have this, one of the things that I'll talk about is this obsession with the community. You have to go through a phase of obsession about everything. Like, the events team, Joel and Chris will get so mad at me. Probably mad. They probably will get mad at me. Upset maybe is a better word, but they'll send me like a graphic still to a final approval on a agenda or on a save the date. And I'll be like, no, I don't exactly know what I want to change to, but this thing bothers me.
Yeah.
The words are too big here and too small here. There's 4 different fonts. Like, you just can't compromise that stuff. And when you start compromising, you kind of know. You're like, oh,
yeah,
it's not as meaningful to me anymore. And I'm not there yet. I'm still irritating the shit out of
Well,
them.
can I ask you sort of a challenging forward-looking question about this idea then? It's inescapable that the true brand and Scott Smith are sort of one and the same. So no, I think it's at least, I think that's fair, even if you maybe you would disagree. But what I'm saying is, like, could the true brand maintain its identity and culture and passion and cult-like following if Scott Smith was no longer at the helm?
I would say yes with an asterisk. A lot of that's up to me to position it in the right way. Because shame on me if I don't try to let it move on without me whenever that's the right time. What I say is yes, but. So exactly the same? No.
Yeah.
Because whoever's running True next is not going to be probably as ridiculous as I am on some stuff. I mean, the silliness where I'm willing to embarrass myself.
Yeah.
I'm willing to push, like, some of the skits we've done, the things on stage that I've done. Like, some people just aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
So my guess would be, if I'm successful and we have enough runway, right? You never know the runway you have. But if we've got a couple of years with which we're able to, we've got a crazy good team at True that could absolutely run this thing without me.
But do you think this type of business needs that figurehead kind of person at the helm?
It's I don't think so. So I think what happens is, could True become a little more serious? So, let's say there's this mix of silly music, laughter, fun and frivolity, and training and education and peer learning. And let's say that's 50-50 right now. Well, let's say it becomes 65 learning, training, education, insurance-y. That's not it's different, but it keeps traits of fun and energy.
Yeah, it's not a complete pivot away from the original idea. Yeah.
But I think it's really getting people on board. So if that were to happen, let's just say tomorrow I quit. I would have to go to the True team, but I would have to go to the Chris Hamiltons of the world, the Joey Jansons of the world, the Liz Freyers of the world, the Marie Medinas and the Trevor Colorados of the world, and Stephanie out there, Alan Casuras,
just list everybody.
Liz DeJody. Yeah. I'm thinking just of younger, energetic people. Don't be offended if I didn't say your name. These are just things that popped in my mind. But those are the people that the internal members, if they said, hey, we're going to work with you to keep this thing mojoing, and they became a smidge more involved than just members, right? Maybe there's a committee or a board that's put forth. Maybe you get more active member engagement on some of the small decisions that are made. Because right now I'm able to, I have the authority, the gravitas, if you will, from the members. They know I'm going to make a decision. I'm thinking about them first.
Okay.
Right? They know that. If it's a collective, maybe. So I think that's a long-winded way to say, I think it is intertwined with my personality right now. but I don't think it has to be if done right.
Having spent years working alongside healthcare leaders, brokers, and employers, I know how overwhelming healthcare can feel for our customers. We've all been there. Those renewal conversations that never seem to get easier. Rising pharmacy costs and medical costs, and no real transparency into where healthcare dollars are going. That's why I'm excited about Nomi Health. They're not just fixing the old system. They've rebuilt self-funded benefits from the ground up. With Nomi's network, you can offer something truly different. No copays, no deductibles, zero out-of-pocket costs when members see a provider. It's the kind of benefit that makes everyone ask, why hasn't healthcare always worked this way? Ready to bring your clients something different? Visit nomihealth.com and see how Nomi is rebuilding healthcare, one employer and one community at a time. But is that a weird thing to consider as a founder, right? Because I've seen founder-led businesses, and eventually, whether it's a voluntary or involuntary reason, they might end up losing control or exit a business that they created, right? And there's this feeling of sometimes there might be unfinished business. There's this feeling, of course, that this is my baby. But there's also sometimes when you do it because you want to pass the baton, because you might pass it over to somebody who has a slightly different vision, will take your original idea, but they have a different version of it to a degree. They might be able to elevate it to that next echelon or the next level of the business. Like, is that a weird thing, like psychologically, to even consider a future state of true that might not have a sky? And I'm not alluding, obviously, to anything. I'm just asking you.
No, there's a time when it happens.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm 54, and I have interest in music and experiences and other things. So I'm not going to do this forever. I don't think it's weird. I've said this before recently, and it's hard to articulate, but I don't have, I would want True to succeed if it was still providing value to the people in it. And they could change the name. I don't care. I don't have this affinity as a founder, I don't have this affinity to the brand that most people think I do. The relationships.
Well, I find that surprising. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the relationships it's what's inside. So it's my relationship with Britt. I'm going to have a relationship with Britt and Ellie and his kids forever. It's my relationship with Chris Hamilton, with Maggie Quinn. It's all these people that have made up this unique experience for me in this time period. So if I took start and end and say it was 12 years, that's the magic, man.
Yeah.
True's not the magic. The magic happened.
Yeah.
So if I want to go try to create some more magic somewhere else, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll call it something else, do it something else. But if that magic still needs to be, if that mojo still needs to be there, it can help all those people I've talked about, and they still want it to happen, then I would want it to continue. But if it didn't, I did my jam.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So if it were to flourish without me, I would be happy if the other people were happy.
Yes. Well, you see, I just think you look at what the legacy is of something, and I don't contemplate too much my own legacy, but you do think about minor things like what would they say about you when it was done, or what would they just sort of say about you if you weren't in front of them, right? You just hope that you do something that has some sort of staying power that does good.
Did you see the Mike Tyson interview about legacy with that little kid reporter?
No, I didn't.
You got to go watch it. It was, I don't feel this way. First of all, it was a kid interviewing him before the fight.
Okay.
Mike did not take this into account because there were some curse words. He was basically like, legacy. What do you mean legacy? And he was basically, I'm not going to do Mike Tyson. He said, are we so arrogant that we're dust? Like we're here, we die. Yeah. What do you mean legacy? Who sits around and thinks about their legacy? What kind of arrogant BS is that? Like, I'm here, I'm gone, we're all dust, we die, that's the end.
Yeah.
And it was like this weird, like,
that's a pretty nihilistic worldview.
It is.
Yeah.
But it makes you, but it
also is kind of true.
It is kind of true.
Yeah.
And so it made me think, because in my life mission statement, I mentioned I want to leave a legacy of kindness and love. And I start thinking, well, is that arrogant? No, I don't really care. It's in the moment. Because what that does, if you say that, I want to leave a legacy of kindness and love, it means in the moment, I need to be working within kindness and love. And it's just something aspirational because you failed and you come back and then you're like, that wasn't
But I
kindness
think,
and
you know,
love.
it's not like you own kindness and love, right? Just to kind of think about this philosophically, you're a conduit for it.
Yeah.
And you either amplify it or suppress that, the contagion of kindness and love, right? And if you feel you did a good job of amplifying and spreading that in the period of time that you had the ability to influence others, like there's something to that.
Yeah.
But then you sort of just pass the baton on to the next person or next business that'll do the same, and it's not permanent. So I kind of understand. I think, do you know who Alex Ramosi is? I don't know if you follow him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He kind of has a similar worldview to what you just described Mike Tyson having. Mm-hmm. It's like, who cares what other people say about you? There's like 7 billion people on this planet. You can build $1 billion business. You can build a $1 million business. It doesn't matter. Nobody 2 generations from now is going to ever say your name again, essentially. So his whole point was like, who cares what people think? Do what you want to do in this period that you have. Build whatever kind of business or have whatever kind of life you have, and don't really worry about does it impress somebody else or not, because at the end of the day, it's really not going to mean a whole lot after you're gone. And he was saying that's liberating to kind of think that way. It's, again, a little nihilistic, a little pessimistic, but it's also freeing in the way that he was positioning it to just liberate you to go do what you want to do.
Well, there's no doubt that, and I've said this in different contexts, when I started being myself, meaning really figuring out who I was and acting that way, it's when I have had the most success.
Yeah.
And even at, by and large, I don't care what people say or think about me. But by and large, because at some point we all do.
Of course you do. Yeah.
Right? And it's interesting with different levels of quote unquote success, which is such a weird word. But if we just put it in the words that most of us think about it, like financial success, you start getting these weird haters. You're like, wait, this person doesn't like me? They don't even know me.
Yeah. You're like, how could they not like
do
me?
they not know I'm sincere?
Yeah, don't they know I'm a good guy?
Like, hey, no, that person said I was full of shit. What? That doesn't bother me anymore.
Well, I started to try to let that go. There's like probably 3 or 4 people that I routinely have negative interactions with on posts and LinkedIn. It's like they'll come to my post and
that's not real.
Flame it, huh?
They're not real.
No, they're not. But they're real human beings.
No,
I
don't even think they are.
Okay, you think it's all bots?
No, I just don't.
I don't want to say the names of the people, but
I just don't. People, this is my. I don't. Yes, they're real people. The people that do that, I just call them not real people.
Okay.
Because they're something's wrong with them.
That's what I at the end of the day, I let it go. I don't block them because I don't want to be like sort of hypocritical, as I'm a big free speech guy, and I'm not going to block you for your ability to interact with my post. But it's
block them. You know,
you're gonna block the shit out of those people. There may be a point where I compromise that worldview, but it's just like you start to think, well, why do you have such an issue with things? You know, I'm trying to do good things or talk about things that are beneficial for employers. I'm trying to convey ideas that I think are effective. But it's like it's a nitpicking of little words, or it's like every time it's the same thing over and over. You're just like, why are you like this? Like, what the amount of energy that you spend trying to be a contrarian on my posts? Like, surely you could put that energy into something more constructive.
Human nature is weird,
and then it wastes my energy thinking about how to respond to them well. And there's a few back and forths, or eventually I go, well, if I don't stop replying to them, he or she's not going to stop replying. So I just need to stop replying and let it go.
There's this weird. So the whole kindness and love thing, sometimes
it has limits, right?
It has limits.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and I've said this before, it doesn't mean I don't want to squash my competition.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately, like, I fully believe that if I take clients from competition, it should make them better. Because I know one thing: if I start losing a bunch of my members to other networks,
you're gonna go, what's going on?
I better get better.
Yeah.
And me being better will help the members be better, which helps people be better. So that's just healthy. But also, there's always times where you have to draw lines and set boundaries. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, that's the most kind thing to do.
Well, I have a belief. There's 2 points I want to make, but I have a belief that you deserve an inherent level of respect by default to start. And then over time, if you demonstrate to me that you didn't deserve that baseline level of mutual respect for me because you're not respecting me on the other direction, then I will start to turn on you a little bit. But on the surface, unless you do something so egregious that I just can't look the other way. I'm going to give everybody multiple benefits of the doubt before I ever start to treat them any differently than I would treat somebody else. And so I try to conduct there. But there's just a few people that over time have risen to that level where I'm like, ugh, like
you're going to win when you forget about them.
Yeah.
When you're like, I don't where they don't even register.
Sure.
That's when you win.
We're talking about the idea of a community before, right? And if you create an environment where most people are really nice and genuine and kind, and yet one or two bad apples start to spread bad energy, like it could tank a community, right? The toxicity that comes along with that.
Absolutely.
So you also can't tolerate it at a certain point as well, or allow it to continue.
Listen, at every live event we have, I will say this 3 times. I say it at the opening reception. I will say, listen, there's going to be open bars. Please don't drink so much that you ruin your career or your life out of one stupid evening. And people laugh, and then I'll say it at the first, then I'll say it the next night, then I'll say it the closing night. Almost every event now, there's
that person?
Something that happens.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, not always, sometimes it's a bad actor that you need to deal with. Other times it's just somebody who drank too much and acted stupid. But if you really get 1 or 2 bad actors that you tolerate,
it's the broken window theory. You know that?
Man.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that?
Tell me.
Okay, it's the idea is if you allow in a neighborhood for a broken window to go unfixed over time, that will continue to spread like a contagion, and the neighborhood will end up falling in disrepair.
Yeah.
So the same thing, if you were to continue to tolerate 1 or 2 bad actors or people that are overstepping bounds, it's signaling to the rest of the community that that's tolerable and could have obviously a network effect negatively.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to suppress it at some point, otherwise it could get way worse.
Yeah. You know, I think what we deal with more is in the subtlety of trying to get people to attend and engage. Because to us, really the magic of the community is you keep adding more and more people who have the same culture, right? This kindness, winning, build each other up, want to be in small study groups. Like the more people you have, the more it spreads. And with 90 members, let's say we have 20% of our members who are not deeply engaged. Well, you're getting up to now like 20 members. Well, are they really good members? Like they're paying their dues. We have an override structure that is gives us money. That's fine. So from a financial perspective, we could have a very profitable member that is not deeply engaged in the community. And that's what we're trying to say. Hey, how do we get those folks engaged? Yeah, they're fine. They're not a bad actor, but they're not really doing their part to help engage in the community like we want them to. Yeah, it's not saying they're taking advantage of it, but they're participating in all the upside, but not really contributing to improve the community simultaneously. Well, so this is almost like a passenger kind of, if you will. And listen, you need those. You have to have some people. Those, it's more of us like, gosh, you're paying us. We would like you to get more value. Literally, sometimes we'll do that. And they're like, I'm fine, Scott. Yeah. I've got my little overrides. My partnership's going well. I'll send one person to this meeting. I'm good. Yeah. I'm like, oh, man, but I'd love to see you more. But I think there's something, it's kind of circling back a little bit to the detractors. I think there's also something to when you reach a certain point and do things, whether publicly or that are demonstrable, eventually that's also going to attract somebody that's like, doesn't like what you do, right? It's almost like you want to be in a position where not everybody's just sort of neutral or likes you, that you have some people that dislike you because you're I'm looking at Britt. We just recorded a piece of content on this. Oh, did you really? Yeah. I didn't know this. I know. Okay. It's so good. But as you want to, at some point, you want to stand for something, I guess is my point. Yeah. And by standing for something, the very nature of standing for something means there's people that disagree. And so if you don't reach that level and you're sort of like, oh, I want everybody to like me and I'm cool, it's like, then do you really stand for anything? Listen, we just produced a piece of content where I'm talking about you have to be repulsive to some people to be really impactful. To build the community you want. That's a great way to put it. Really, this is what I said. It's like, when I first heard that comment, I don't know, it's not mine. I've heard it somewhere. I was like, I don't want to be repulsive. Oh, Seth Godin. I think it was Seth Godin that I heard this from. He has this thing called the smallest viable community, where like, what's the smallest amount of people you could have to achieve your goals? Because that's like, if you had a podcast and you can only have 10 people listen to your podcast, but those 10 people were the most valuable people, who would those 10 people be?
Yeah.
And there's a world where if you had 10 CEOs listen to your podcast, you probably would, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it was in that exercise where he's like, sometimes you have to be repulsive. And I'm like, Scotty Smith doesn't want to be repulsive to anybody. But then you know, as you understand it more, it's like, no. If someone says to me, I hate music, I hate SNL, I wear a suit and tie to work every day, it is strictly business. They're just with those three things. If they said those things, I'd be like, let me come take you to dinner or something, but we're not, you don't need to be in true.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's just a certain, like, we're going to do these silly sketches, both live ones and recorded ones. We're going to have concerts at every event where I implore the crowd to have a listening room environment for this next hour. We're going to have fun at events. Like, if you're against that, like, really, and that's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And I made this comment after the Dr. Evil sketch we did in whatever year that was. I had someone complain to actually the Patriot board, which I was on at the time, and say, is this the kind of guy we want on our board?
Yeah.
The kind of guy that's going to dress up like Dr. Evil. And at first it hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I won't tell you what I said, but yes,
I know what I might have said.
This is the kind of person. Yes.
Yeah.
Because guess what? People love it.
Yeah.
You know, people love this. And if you don't, then we repulse you. That's the person.
That's actually good, though. I mean, I think the point is that is good, is because you curated a vibe, you know, to use like the kids' vernacular vibes. You know, you've got the vibe of true.
Yeah.
And it'll attract a personality type. It will repel a personality type. But it's not vanilla. It's tangible, and therefore it's identifiable, and you have an identity that's associated with it, which means people will be attracted to that, and then some people won't. You want that, though, right? You don't want somebody that's lukewarm.
I do.
You want a lukewarm? Or no, you were agreeing with me. Sorry.
Yeah, I do.
You don't want a lukewarm.
No, I want a vibe.
Yeah.
Listen, if there's one main negative to having a parent company, is I can't do exactly what I want anymore. Right? Like, there is a sense of corporate responsibility with Patriot.
Yeah.
2,000 employees. I can't do what Scotty Smith wants all the time. I can't make some of the jokes I want to make on our sketches. I've got to pull it back a little bit. That's probably in all of the weird stuff, I would be probably way more controversial if it was just true and Scott.
Pareto Health is the largest benefits captive in the United States. With nearly 3,000 captive members, $1.3 billion of stop-loss premium in force, and almost 1 million covered lives, no other benefits captive comes close to Pareto Health's scale. But it's not just about the numbers. Pareto Health is a mission-driven organization, and that mission has two distinct parts. Number one, to make self-insurance simple and more accessible for small to mid-sized employers. And number two, to arm them with the most powerful cost management tools on the market. So if you're an employer frustrated with your healthcare outcomes, or you're a benefits consultant looking for an alternative to the status quo, it's time to consider Pareto Health. Pareto Health, where employers come to do self-insurance right, to do it easily, and to do it at scale. But you're an artist, and I'll say that to you. There's an artistry to you. There are certain artists that need guardrails imposed upon them, and managers, and because
I don't need no guardrails.
No, you do. You need some guardrails, because they'll get so far off into left field believing in their own art, which is fine. They're pursuing it so passionately. But you also have to think about who's the recipient or the consumer of the art, and if there aren't some standards placed upon you to constrain you to a certain degree, you might run off into left field.
Joel Tillerson is like nodding
is he
his
that
head.
guy?
Oh yeah. Joel is that guy with me. He's like, no, that's not.
Well, and I've talked about this before, the idea of constraints. If you give me a constraint to write about, I love pouring my energy into something that's more defined. But if I was just sort of free just to go think about something and write, I find that way harder to do, because it's like you got dropped in the middle of the ocean and you're trying to find the shore. But if you just threw me off over there and I know, well, the shore is that way and I got 100 yards, I'm going to have to expend some energy to get there,
Yeah.
but I know where to go. Like, I love just a slight amount of constraint put onto where I focus my energy. And I think sometimes that might actually be good for your business as well.
Well, maybe. I would say it probably is, because I would most definitely make some mistakes in jokes and content. But, there's something about freely being yourself that is also incredibly attractive. I did one skit, ironically, as I was dating Val. We do this between true firms,
yes,
rather than between two firms skits. And I've had Steve Noodleberg, I had Chris Watt, Mutual of Omaha, I had my friend Liz Frayer, I had Val, and we were dating. Mm-hmm. And there was a joke that I made in there that I'm not going to repeat it again, because I've repeated it on other podcasts and people have said, stop, you're telling the joke again. No, I'm not telling the joke again.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Oh, I know the joke.
You know the joke.
Yeah.
So, and it was a joke. It was in a sketch.
Yeah.
SNL could do that material and get away with it. I couldn't because of the corporate shackles. There's something about the ability to do that joke when the truth can override everything else. Yeah. If the joke is funny, the joke's funny. And
well, that's the main distinction.
And I understand that joke may offend some people.
It has to, but it has to be funny. You can get a pass if
it has to be funny.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that. If you look at, let me take Elon Musk recently.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of people will hear this. I'm not making take politics out. He has so much money now. He can say, he's got these clips that have gone around. If you're trying to extort me for money, F you, take your money elsewhere.
Yeah.
There's something so freeing about that.
Yeah.
To have the power and the will to say, I want to act as a kindness and love. Listen, I'm going to be wrong sometime, and I'll course correct. Mm-hmm. The joke I did, actually the person that was offended, I called, had a good conversation with them.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that person loves me now because they know that my heart, even though I would probably do the joke again and offend them again, I would say, that's funny. It's not. It's funny because it's true. But I would love that person, and I think they would love me because they know me deeply now.
Yeah.
And there's something about that when we talk about building a contagious community. It's something about even that interaction. I said something that offended somebody. I called that person. I said, I just want to talk to you about it. I don't want you to lose respect for me.
Yeah, but see, can I give you a counter perspective to that?
Yeah.
To me, there's an arrogance about somebody that gets offended when something is not about them at all, but they make it about them and they go, you offended my sensibilities. I don't like that joke. And it's like, well, one, it was a joke. Two, it was true. And three, it wasn't about you. So like, I look at somebody like that because I've had somebody that, they tried to get me fired because I made a video in like April of 2021 saying if you wanted to meet in person and shake hands without a mask, I'll do it.
Right.
They tried to get me fired. And it was like dude in California, but he sent our CEO like a message. This is Pareto, sent our CEO a message and was like, how could you have a sales leader that has this position and blah, blah, blah. And it's like the arrogance of somebody that I've never met in my life in, 20 states away thinks that they should get me fired because they didn't like the sentiment of a video that was really benign.
Yeah.
That stuff kind of pisses me off. Like, I don't like when somebody feels the audacity to take offense of a joke and try to come after you or get you off a board seat. I mean, that oversteps so many bounds, in my opinion. You handled it graciously.
Well, yes.
But that angers me. I'm offended.
I was mad. I'm not going to lie to you. I was mad in the moment. I was mad at both instances.
Yeah.
But I've got this weird thing. And listen, I also will say this comes from a place of privilege. I don't love that word at all. But I get to do things that other people don't do. And whether that's, well, we could just...
But you also earn the right to achieve that sort of position, I think.
Yeah. I'm just saying that I recognize that I have had opportunities that other people have not had.
Sure.
But which and it's the reason I think I like to give these people a little grace, the ones that complained. Now, if they were strangers, I wouldn't do that, but they were in my network.
Yeah.
So for me to call them out and say, hey, listen, tell me what you're thinking. I want to hear your side of it.
Yeah.
Because here's the flip side of it. Another paradox. This is in my list of paradoxes.
Yeah.
Within business, I believe that you have to this proclivity towards action, this putting together a plan, acting on it, being all in, being so sure that you're right about this that you're willing to bet it all, right? Like that's, I think it's entrepreneurs have to have that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Here's the paradox. You have to be willing to stop on a dime and admit you're wrong and change.
Fail fast, right? Yeah.
I mean, it is hard when you're all in and think you're right and you're going full speed ahead and I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right. You somehow have to have the ability to like let the truth come in and be like, oh shit, I was wrong and change. And that is hard.
Yeah.
That is really hard. So part of that is like the person who complained about my joke is like, okay, let me listen to them with an honest, open mind and hear their side.
Okay.
Because it's possible I'm wrong. You just have to have that. It's the hardest thing in the world to really think you could be wrong about everything. Because I know I'm not right about everything.
Well, that's fair.
So if I know I'm not right about everything, I could be wrong about everything.
But I look in that situation again, and it's a corollary to mine. It's like, what if that person had been successful in ousting you from the board?
Well, that would have been terrible.
Or what if that guy had been successful getting fired from my job when I'm the sole breadwinner in my house? You know, what if that had a different outcome?
I think there's
an audacity to it that I don't think even maybe they're viscerally reacting to something that triggered them, but like I don't think they think through the potential downstream impact of what they're doing.
You're gonna make me mad again. You're gonna get me mad again, aren't you?
Because I'm mad. This is 4 years ago, and I'm still pissed off about this one guy. I don't even actually remember his name now, but like I look at those things, and I'm sort of one of those guys that doesn't get offended about anything, I guess. And so when I look at somebody that's willing to take their own personal feelings of offense and try to take another person down or get them out of their career, ruin them financially, their reputation, I have zero tolerance for that.
Well, you're right. You're right. That the inability for someone to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, I was offended by this.
Yeah, and what if that guy just sent me a message and said, hey,
Yeah.
I think that you should be careful, and here's my perspective on this, and maybe I lost somebody to COVID, and that's why I got so upset. I would have been, okay, well, I appreciate your perspective, and here's my perspective of why I did that video. Okay, just as an example, right?
Yeah.
You could have given your personal perspective to this is why I did the joke, and this is what's going on behind the scenes you may not know. And so this is how I did it. And I know you don't like it. That's fine. That's fair.
Yeah.
Thought it was funny. Overwhelming majority of people told me it was funny.
Yeah.
You seem to be the only one taking offense. So like, let's also have a moment of self-reflection from him as well.
Well, here's the thing. If this was Scott Smith Enterprises, I would have been like, sorry.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Since I was with a large organization, I had to take it seriously and say,
I feel
hey,
you. Yep.
like I've got to take this seriously. Britt, we've probably had 10 sketches where we're like, boy, that is funny. Can we do that? No, we can't do that.
I've got a series of memes on my phone. You mentioned Mike Tyson a minute ago. You know how we saw Mike Tyson's buttocks? Yeah. There's a meme.
By the way, if you haven't seen the picture, it wasn't like Spencer and I that saw his buttocks in a private showing.
No, it was on
This
everybody
was
on
on a
Netflix.
clip on a Netflix
Everybody
in
literally
the post-fight interview.
Yeah. But there's a meme going around where people are like putting shirts on him, and so I created one that had like the self-funded with Spencer face on the front, and on the back it said self-funded with Spencer, and still had a little bit of clip of his butt cheeks. I tried to crop some of it out, but I'm like, I don't know if I can post that. I don't know if the LinkedIn like filters are gonna think it's nudity or something.
If we were both running our companies independently, we would. There's no doubt that would be posted.
I would have added like 3 extra butt cheeks.
Yeah,
Can I introduce another paradox? You keep talking about paradox.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the paradox of choice?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess with anybody that's listening, the idea is the more choices you have, the higher likelihood you're going to be dissatisfied with the choice that you actually make.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Because we were talking earlier about like different designs of a captive. You have a captive that has options. You have a captive that has no options.
Well,
then you have too many options. Does it become confusing to a buyer, and they might have a lower likelihood of being satisfied with that preponderance of choice?
Well, there's certainly validity to the paradox of choice. Man, it's like so much in life. It depends. If I'm thinking about, let's just take the captive example. So, for example, Pareto has been very successful of basically saying, here's our preferred list of vendors. We'd like you to operate within this ecosystem, but we're pretty flexible with who you'd like to use. with these certain, we're going to put boundaries out there, but we know that brokers want choice, and we know that actually healthcare is very local. So you actually need different TPAs, and so they've got a menu of products and services, where it be TPAs or cost containment vendors. If I get any of this wrong, please let me know. There are other people who have said, hey, why are we doing that? I'm going to go out and find the best pharmacy contract. I'm going to find the best TPA. I'm going to negotiate like heck with all these people, and I'm going to build the best widget ever. Here, take it.
You only get it. You only get that thing. Yeah.
And so, yeah, as a recovering salesperson, I could sell either one of those options.
Yeah.
You know,
you could. Yeah. You obviously you'd be paid to articulate which one is better, right?
Yeah.
But I think it also can be both, but also it doesn't have to be that far extreme either. But if you want to think about like a more universal application of that idea, I talk to friends a lot. I miss the dating app phase. I met my wife in college, right?
Right.
So I think now...
For a second, I thought you meant you missed it, like you missed swiping.
I missed it so bad. I wish I had used it.
You're like you walk around
my
doing
finger
like
still
this
swipes
sometimes.
right all the time. But the bringing it back to that concept, right? It's like I think nowadays young people have so much choice that they can't end up actually landing and committing to a singular person because there's this belief there's infinite choice. And so what you're actually doing is creating worse outcomes, I think, in relationships and delaying of marriage and starting families and things like that. Because the old days, you meet in college, you meet in your small town, you randomly meet at a coffee shop, you eliminate this sentiment or perception of infinite choice. And so you have this ability to commit because there's fewer perceived choices in that pool.
Yeah, it's accurate. There's also, I don't think this is even, now I'm just on the dating thing.
Yeah.
There's also so many choices of things that you can do.
Yep.
So there's an infinite number of things to watch on TV.
Yep.
There's an infinite number of video games now to play. There are all these things.
Infinite amount of music that you can consume.
You can really sit in your basement and never leave.
You can spend the rest of your life listening
and have
to music.
Stimulus.
Yeah.
Where I always sound like the old. So, the older you get, you start sounding like the old guy.
Yeah.
Like, well, when I was growing up, you had 3 channels and you went outside.
Yeah.
And you did. You dated people that were around you, and you had a sort of a dating pool, a local dating pool. You met people in college, or you met people at work, or you went to church, or you met up at the local bar if you happen to be going that route.
Didn't they used to do like singles networking events too? Maybe they still do things like that, but like to try to like the real world version of virtual dating.
I think
apps?
they still do that stuff. They have meetups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're in a different world. I was listening to. What's his name? Peter Thiel. Recently,
Peter Thiel, yeah.
Around talking about paradoxes.
Yeah, well, I think I was talking to Nathaniel about this very conversation yesterday.
Was it the one around how we're about how much are we really advancing in society?
The one I was listening to was that it was like dogmatism versus skepticism, and like both ends of that spectrum are equally as bad, because either you believe everything that you're told or you believe nothing that you're told, and neither one of those is a desirable
Was this a Barry Weiss interview?
It might have been.
I think it was in the same interview.
Okay, it probably was. But what was the paradox?
By the way, if you haven't listened to that interview, Barry Weiss interviewing Peter Thiel, that is one of the smartest dudes I've ever listened to. Take politics out of it, people. I'm just saying he's really smart. It was around, like if you look at space travel, like of all the technology that we've advanced in the past 40, 50 years, what's been our advancement in air travel and space travel? Like look at the speed of planes, and he went through all of these things where we're really not advancing like we think we are. We have these hyper specialized people, like they're so specialized that they're not taking in the totality of the overall situation. So you've got, a singular cancer cell specialist who's only working on one cancer cell, and they're so focused on that single line of research that they are not now interacting with other researchers around neurology that might have some kind of impact on the cancer or other physiology. There's this hyper specialization that's led to, and in effect, a dampening on people who can step back and see the entirety of the picture.
Sure.
And I just think that's an interesting, I don't know what you said that made me go off down this track.
I don't either.
It was just
It's still interesting
something
thought, though.
you said made me go there.
I think we're both sort of finding the footing for how do we end this podcast. I mean, God, how long have we been talking, guys?
Hour and 20 minutes.
I was going to say, this may be
20.
the longest. Yeah, and we keep going. I don't have any objective at the end of this.
I've talked to Britt about this, because I'm going to start a new podcast.
Do we just keep going until it's 2:45?
Yeah, we'll just
keep going.
We'll just talk a few more minutes.
Okay.
I've been talking about launching a new podcast, a personal podcast, not to do with True, and because the Super Troopers that we do that you've been on, they're all about an hour long.
Yeah.
And we get to the hour, and I'm like, I haven't even gotten to half the things I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
And I know nobody's going to want to listen to a 2.5 hour Scott Smith podcast like they would a Joe Rogan or somebody, but I don't know if I care. I just want to talk to people like you for as long as I want to talk.
Yeah.
You know how, what's the music producer? Long hair, long beard. Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
How he talks about how an artist creates the music for themselves. Like, when you create the music for yourself and you put it out there, it's done. Like, your job is over. And it's up to the audience if they want to take that and love it or like it or not. But you've done what you did because you loved it.
Yep.
And what he said, it just so happens that other people like what I like, other people like. I really think if folks like you and I would just, and a lot of people listening, would tune out, I'm not going to say haters, but maybe naysayers, just release themselves from the shackles of expectations and what people think of them. I would love to talk to you and ask you questions for 3 hours. I would like to get Nate Dogg over here. I don't know his personal story.
Yeah.
But, being around him, such a young guy, there's some interesting stuff over there that I don't know.
Yep.
Who cares if anybody listens to it? I mean, honestly, now I'm in a position where financially I could just do it. Well, why shouldn't I do it if that's what I want to do? And there are things like that if you want to make your podcast 3 hours,
I
just
try to
make
strike
it.
a balance with that too. It's like, I want to create conversations that I believe people will listen to and derive actual value from.
Yeah.
And then there are certain times I'm just like, screw it. I want to talk to my buddy who's a children's author, or I want to talk to somebody about health and fitness, right? Like, every once in a while I throw out like a complete curveball, just simply to just mix up it's like almost a pattern disrupt, right? So there's a certain, like, maybe it's an 80-20 Pareto balance, but there's a certain amount that you do have to sort of play to what you've curated. And there's a certain freedom I think you can to play around a little bit and not just completely, I would say that, what's the word I'm looking for? Take your audience for granted or kind of deny what they're there for in the first
I think I'm going to do it.
Well, I don't think. I think
I'm gonna take that
I've talked
for
to
granted.
Nathaniel so many times. I'm like, I want to sit down with Chris Hamilton. I literally don't want to have any idea how long it's going to be or exactly what we're going to talk about. Because I had a similar feeling. I actually felt it in this podcast. There's a groove that we hit, and it got a little, like, it got exciting to me on certain subject matter. And it's like, you may not find that for 45 minutes or an hour, and then you hit it, and you're like, you get really excited, and you want to keep talking. So I think, I don't know, man. I don't know what the right answer is, but I'd like to start testing the boundaries of it a little bit. Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of boundaries, I think that's the perfect time to finish the podcast.
You want to do it? Okay.
You said boundary.
Boundary.
The
boundary
the
is,
boundary of the end.
It's actually one of my favorite heavy metal bands too. It's called Boundary. So I think that's the first good place to start.
That's the one thing that I just can't get my mind around. You love heavy metal music.
And when we say it's not like heavy metal, it's like you probably wouldn't understand when I played it. Kind of.
I know what it is. It's crazy that you like that. Look at you. You're handsome.
I do.
Smiley.
I like it.
You're happy. And then you listen to that, it's like, oh my God.
And I don't have any sort of dark secret I'm I'm not like Dexter on the weekends, like serial
That's
killer.
what Dexter would say.
Well, maybe that's true.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not.
Eventually he got caught. But no, man, it's, okay, let's end it there. Boundaries. Go listen to Boundaries.
Do not do that. Listen
I'm
to
gonna play you a song,
listen to a guy
Scott.
named John Splitoff, Splithoff, to balance out boundaries.
And then go to Crown Magnetar after that.
Okay, then go listen to Mark Broussard,
Okay, and then Die Artist Murder.
Josh Kelly,
Okay, and then Knock Loose is
Madison
probably
Ryan Ward.
good. Okay, then
Oh, look, we've done
Britt
enough.
throws up. Yeah, we've done it. Okay, all right. Thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it. Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Scott.
Thank
for
you, man.
joining me.